Three separate federal judges started raining on his parade, a quick succession of court decisions over the course of just a few hours rebuking Trump on some of his seemingly highest priorities in office. I mean, these are the things that keep him up at night. These are the things he thinks about, that he plots about, that he talks about to the press and anyone who's listening. There is clear evidence of the growing backlash to his profiteering off of his position. Like when he unilaterally put his name above John F. Kennedy's on the Kennedy Center. Not, profit per se, but let's just say self-aggrandizement. A federal judge today ordered Trump's name permanently removed from the building, saying, quote, and this is true, Congress gave the Kennedy Center its name and only Congress can change it. That was just the beginning of Trump's very bad day. The next shoe to drop was over his planned $1.8 billion slush fund to pay the people who helped him try to overthrow an election the last time he lost, and we should say, essentially anyone else that he wants to. The plan is now falling apart. A federal judge in Virginia put the brakes on that slush fund today, halting it as multiple lawsuits against Trump's DOJ work through their way through the courts. Remember, Trump's DOJ proposed this fund at a settlement to Trump's $10 billion lawsuit against the IRS that Donald Trump controls. And today, the federal judge in Florida, who heard the lawsuit, right, when Trump filed the lawsuit against the IRS, she said she is reopening that lawsuit to investigate grievous allegations that the settlement was, quote, premised on deception and made the court the victim of a fraud. That was a response to a motion by 35 former federal judges saying the Trump administration might have defrauded the court with its settlement. The settlement seems like a product of collusion, not a good faith process between two parties in a lawsuit who are, crucially, adversarial to each other in a controversy, as the Constitution describes. In fact, one of the signatories, one of the retired federal judges who signed onto that brief, explained on our show just last night how there could have been a fraud on the court.
This could only be paid over if there was litigation, if there had been a claim. And so therefore they went to court to make a claim. The problem is that the claim was really, as we said in our papers, a collusion, was a fraud on the court, that the claim was really not a real claim because it was Donald Trump bargaining with himself, as you said before, the snake bargaining with himself. So the motion was to reopen the case. Not that we're saying that it is a fraud or not fraud. We're saying there's enough here that the judge should investigate, should be opened to see what's going on.
Now, I'll be honest with you, when we had Nancy Gertner, who you just saw there on the show last night, who's been a frequent guest and who I always love hearing from, when we had her on the show saying this, again, I don't know the law well enough, it seemed a bit of a long shot, like to go in and be like, wait a second, wait, not so fast. But guess what? Not such a long shot. That judge that received the filing is now giving the government until June 12th. They have to file something explaining how the slush fund plan is legitimate. They actually have to reply and say, no, we weren't colluding, we were adversarial, as hard as a case that might be to make, or the whole thing might be scuttled entirely. So that's three huge rulings just today, just in a few hours this afternoon into the evening, challenging some of Trump's most grossly corrupt acts. Then, just before he got on air, another federal judge ruled that he could not dismiss the indictments of Oath Keepers leader Stewart Rhodes and fellow supporters who plotted the attack on the Capitol on January 6 because the Justice Department hasn't offered any facts or evidence to justify it, despite the fact that they are trying to rescind those. Just more evidence of Trump's waning power and influence, and also of the just sheer lawlessness of his rampage through the nation that federal judges have been trying to stop. This is even as he's taking the nation's birthday party and turning it into his own. I mean, it's the 250th birthday of the country. Trump has sort of appropriated the whole thing as a Donald Trump birthday party. He's throwing himself a UFC party. There it is, in front of the White House, a live televised cage fight that's happening on the White House lawn on Trump's 80th birthday in 2 weeks, by the way. And that pairs wonderfully with another one of Trump's gifts to himself. And again, he's been making lots of these. He's not someone who likes to deny himself much. A big bunch of stock in, yes, you guessed it, UFC's parent company. Between $15,000 and $50,000 worth in late March, according to disclosures first reviewed by HuffPost. The White House told MSNOW there are no conflicts of interest. Great. No, there's just a stock purchase and then a giant UFC event on the White House lawn that he's been promoting for months. What could possibly be a conflict of interest about that, right? Donald Trump feels entitled to lots of gifts all the time now, even when it's not his birthday. In fact, every day is kind of his birthday. I think that's the way he views it. This increasingly brazen and ham-handed corruption is also, I think, getting harder to sustain as gas prices still hover above $4 a gallon and a vast majority of the country says the economy's awful and his political strength collapses. That's especially with regards to the seditionist slush fund, which might be the single most repellent and audacious idea he's come up with yet. I mean, members of both parties have now introduced bills to block it. One congressman is pushing to subpoena the Trump officials who were involved in putting the plan for that fund together. That congressman is Jamie Raskin, Democrat of Maryland. He's a ranking member of the House Judiciary Committee, and he joins me now. Congressman, I think you and I would both agree that federal district court judges, that's the lowest level in the federal judiciary that has 3 levels, district, appellate, Supreme Court, across ideological lines, across the party that nominated them, have really consistently kind of just said up is up and down is down, you know, black is black and white is white when it comes to Trump. And today we have another example with respect to the slush fund. So first, let me just start with your understanding of the significance of both of these rulings. 1, to just stop it, and 2, down in Florida, to reopen the case.
It's monumental, and the constitutional philosophy that's been advanced by tens of millions of Americans across the country of no kings, I think is also being taken up by the federal judiciary. These people are saying no kings. We're actually going to enforce the law as it is. So it's a remarkable day for the rule of law in America as the judges peel back the various layers of the onion and reveal nothing but a fraud at the heart of it. And that fraud is obviously propounded by Donald Trump, but Attorney General Todd Blanche is right in the thick of it. I mean, they filed a motion to dismiss on July 23rd of 2025 in a case not only exactly on point legally, but on exactly the same point factually. It related to the same leak that Trump was concerned about. This is the one that sent Charles Littlejohn to jail for leaking information about Trump's taxes. And the DOJ, under Todd Blanche and under Pam Bondi, sent in a motion to dismiss, which succeeded, saying that you can't recover against the government for the misdeeds of a private government contractor. They knew it. They won on that point, and then they turned around in this case, and they agreed with Donald Trump that he should get $10 billion.
Yes, right.
Yeah. So now they're all going back and saying it was a fraud on the court from the beginning. There was collusion between the two sides. They weren't owed $1, much less $10 billion. So the settlement, the so-called settlement, was completely fraudulent. It was an attempt to set up this $1.776 billion political slush fund for their friends, and then also an attempt to wipe the slate clean for any tax fraud, tax crimes, or other federal crimes or federal civil violations that were undertaken by Trump, his family, or his businesses, which of course had nothing to do with the original matter of the leak in the first place. So they tried to sneak into this whole thing, this wipeout of liability, a super pardon by the Attorney General for the president, his family, and his businesses. And now suddenly it's clear the emperor's got no clothes. This was a fraud on the court that they're trying to turn into a fraud against the country.
The judge halting the fund, this is Brinkema, says, it's important the status quo be maintained until plaintiff's pending motion has been resolved, especially as plaintiffs allege that defense counsel was unable to provide assurances of how long the status quo would last, and declined plaintiffs' request the government commit to not transferring money to the fund or processing or paying claims at least until June 19th, which is to say the government refused to commit, okay, we'll wait. It seems like they want to ship the money out the door, forcing this federal judge to be like, no, I'm actually putting an order in place that you can't.
Yeah, I mean, they are treating them, and rightfully so, as people caught red-handed in the middle of a massive theft against the taxpayers. So they're saying we're going to freeze the action. Judge Williams' action in response to these 35 retired federal judges is equally extraordinary and equally compelling and correct. And she basically just said, look, I never saw that settlement agreement, much less did I see the codicil to the settlement agreement that was introduced by memorandum the day
Later.
after by
Yes,
the Department of
that's
Justice, giving all of this tax forgiveness and tax liability, a super pardon for any crimes. If you read it, Chris, it's not even just about tax offenses, it's any criminal or civil offenses. So it could be insider trading, it could be embezzlement, it could be Epstein-related crimes, it could be sex-related crimes. All of that is forgiven by that, 1 or 2 page memo that the Attorney General sent in the day after the settlement agreement, which had never been seen by the court in the first place.
Yeah, I mean, as is so often the case in these times, I sort of feel like, well, you don't need a law degree to be like, that's not right. I mean, you can't do that. I don't know what the law is technically, but I don't have a law degree, but like, that can't be the case. And then you also have, I mean, this is what she said. She says she wanted to investigate the circumstances surrounding Mr. Trump's efforts to settle a lawsuit in a way that benefited him and his allies. And what's also key to me here, and you talk about subpoenaing things, like, there's a little bit of reporting in the Wall Street Journal today suggesting there's some people in the White House getting hinky about this, and a little bit of naming of like who is doing this and who is in on this. I want to know how this thing came about. I mean, there's still a lot to find out about how this thing came about. Don't you agree?
Well, yes. And I think, to those of us on Capitol Hill, it smells to high heaven. We've got now robust Democratic and Republican groups working together to shut this down. In the budget reconciliation process related to, ICE and immigration and so on, the Republicans said, we're not going anywhere near this. They don't want to be caught on the wrong side of this. They're already carrying weight for a billion-dollar ballroom that nobody wants because Donald Trump, like a king, just bulldozed the White House. Then they got the $1.776 billion political slush fund. And now you've got this attorney general-driven super pardon for everybody in the Trump family and all the Trump businesses. And they said, we're not going near that. So if we can attach a rider in the appropriations process to say no money for this ripoff, for this fraudulent settlement, then Donald Trump will have to decide, is he going to sign the money he claims that he needs for ICE and immigration enforcement, but include this ban on his ripoff? Or is he going to veto the whole thing and try to force the Republicans back down that road and try to have his way with them again? We'll see. There are enough Republicans who he has completely antagonized and vilified in the campaigns that I think there are enough of them who are going to hang tough with the Democrats.
Well, we'll see. I mean, that's never been a safe bet over the last 10 years, but maybe things change. I think you're right on this, that there's a lot of free agents floating around, particularly over in that Senate, where you got John Cornyn and Bill Cassidy, a few others who are looking to see what they're going to do with the rest of their term. Congressman Jamie Raskin, thank you very much.
You bet, Chris.
Coming up, Congressman James Walkinshaw was in the room for Pam Bondi's blow up with lawmakers today, and then he's going to join me right here on set to talk about it. That's next. Today, former Attorney General Pam Bondi finally appeared before the House Oversight Committee over her handling of the release of the Epstein files. Long-awaited closed-door interview that she made multiple attempts to avoid. Remember, they pulled together that last-minute thing where they're trying to say that counted, but it didn't. Anyway, as you might have anticipated, today did not go well. Bondi lost her temper at points, got combative, grew particularly frustrated when asked questions about Donald Trump, according to a person inside the room. But she did answer at least one question about Trump.
She was asked specifically about Donald Trump, President Trump's awareness of Epstein's crimes before they became public knowledge. She had the opportunity to say Donald Trump certainly wasn't aware of those crimes. She had the opportunity to say, I know Donald Trump, and if he was aware of those crimes, he would have done something. Instead, she said, I don't know. She also said, quote, this is a direct quote, I'm not certain of the extent of his knowledge.
Bondi, after the hearing, tried to clean up her response by calling Congressman James Walkinshaw's account a, quote, misrepresentation, writing, what the world knows to be true is President Trump banned Epstein from Mar-a-Lago decades ago because Epstein was a despicable creep. Joining me now is Congressman James Walkinshaw, Democrat of Virginia, who was in that closed-door interview before the House Oversight Committee, and you just saw him on your television, and now here he is. So walk me through what happened today.
Yeah, look, we had an opportunity to sit down with Pam Bondi and ask questions. Unfortunately, it wasn't on video, so you can't see her responses. You'll get the transcript later. I would say that she said, I don't know, or I can't recall, more than 100 times. She refused to answer any questions about conversations she did or didn't have with Donald Trump about the files. But to me, the most shocking revelation is what you just shared there, that she did not say she was certain Trump was unaware of Epstein's crimes.
First, on that first thing you said, are they citing executive privilege, or are they just saying, like, carte blanche, we're not answering anything about we talked to the president? Do they have a foundation for that?
She described it as a voluntary appearance before the committee because the Republican Chairman Comer let her off the hook with the subpoena. She didn't appear for the sworn deposition, so she was appearing voluntarily, as she and Harmeet Dillon, her personal / DOJ lawyer, described it. So she picked and chose what questions she wanted to answer.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, as someone who has sat in a deposition, I would have preferred that arrangement than the one that I ended up with.
Much better, yeah.
Okay, let's talk about, so one of the things that keeps coming up is they keep telling two stories about what Trump knew about Epstein that are in tension with each other, and I don't think both can be true. One is that he knew nothing, and the other is he kicked him out of Mar-a-Lago because he was such a, and I quote her here, disgusting creep. But those can't both be true. If you kicked him out of Mar-a-Lago because he was such a disgusting creep, then you knew he was a disgusting creep. If you knew he was a disgusting creep, vote for it, but they don't want it to happen.
That's right. But
well, that's how they feel about a lot of things.
That's right. But nor do I believe that there are many of them that are up for a confrontation with Donald.
Football that the Ellisons are willing to put into play. Unfortunately, this is an extremely important institution in American journalism, and now you have it being treated so shabbily. And Tanya Simon, for example, was fired the other day, and it's terrible. This is a woman who did wonderful work at 60 Minutes. None of us are flawless. God knows I'm not. But this is a misery, and it comes, and it really strikes me, in a week when one of the people that ran the company that I work at, Donald Newhouse, died at the age of 95, the brother of Cy Newhouse. And never once in 28 years of running the New Yorker, not once did I get a phone call from Donald or Cy Newhouse saying, I didn't like that story, or Steve Newhouse, or Roger Lynch, who's the CEO who runs it. Not once. And you can be damn sure that somewhere along the way they didn't like something I ran. I mean, absolutely, how could it be otherwise? But I never heard from them. Independence is what's required in journalism, and it's getting rarer and rarer.
It's so well said. I mean, independence is so essential because, like you said, like people can have editorial disagreements, people can be annoyed at their bosses or their editors or whatever, and you can have fights over it, and you can think a story's ready, not ready. But there's the world in which that's happening within good faith exchange, right? And then there's the world where you feel like, okay, there's something corrupt fundamentally that's happening here. There's something, there's a force behind the wall that I'm feeling. And I think, again, to see the sort of line of people leaving that place and saying that, starting with Bill Owens, right? That what we're seeing from outside is like for them to come out and say, I was being manipulated. There was political pressure. That we were getting bias. You just have to kind of conclude.
Sooner or later, the message gets clear.
Right, exactly.
That's exactly right. I think Bill Owen was trying, almost in a form of self-sacrifice, to throw himself on the bear and say, almost challenging CBS to behave in a better way, challenging Barry Weiss to behave with some sense of spine. Look at the deal here. Barry Weiss is a journalist of modest accomplishment. She wrote a book on anti-Semitism, and she worked on the op-ed page of the New York Times, and she left there after really falling out ideologically with that paper. And her famous resignation letter is something that should be read. And then she started something called the Free Press. I have no beef with publications that don't agree with me. I read them all the time. They put pressure on my assumptions, on my arguments. They're absolutely necessary. That's what a democratic press should be all about, or part of it. But it was bought for some preposterous price that I have a hard time believing had anything to do with its value in a market sense. And it was clearly part of this overall deal to satisfy the President of the United States and to assure him that the Ellisons would be on board with the Trump administration as part of the cost of doing business.
Beyond, my friend.
Thanks for having me.
Still to come, with 3 years left in his term, how Donald Trump stopped just newspaper article. It's emerged over the last decade or so where a reporter from New York or D.C. ventures out to the Rust Belt to reaffirm that Trump supporters still support Trump. We've seen them ad nauseum. This week, as Trump's approval ratings crater, the Washington Post did get a different message from Trump voters in Ohio. Quote, Annette Dombrowski said she believed Trump when he promised during his last campaign to lower prices. She watched excitedly alongside her boyfriend last year as Trump signed one executive order after another. But now her bills for gas, groceries, and other necessities have gone up. I don't even want to vote for anybody in the next election, said Dombrowski, once a reliable voter in the midterms. I don't care, because they're all crap. She's not alone. The broad cultural shift that MAGA seemed to have made in this country about 18 months ago has just come and gone. Trump is hemorrhaging support from his white working class base, and the inroads he made with black and Latino men in 2024 are shrinking. According to one recent poll, 25% of Hispanic 2024 Trump voters, those are people who already voted for him in 2024, said they wouldn't support him again. Maria Teresa Kumar is the president and CEO of Voto Latino. Shalani Cobb is a staff writer for New Yorker, dean of the Columbia School of Journalism, and they join me now. Maria, let me start with you, because I think one of the most consistent findings we have seen in polling as Trump approval declines is among Hispanic Latino voters and young voters. Those have been the two where it's like, it just hits you in poll after poll after poll. Here's the Unidos poll, that said 1 in 4 Hispanic Trump voters said they would not vote for him if given the choice. 2/3 of Latino voters disapprove of his job performance, compared with 30% who approve. Disapproval majority in every region tested, including in Florida. And on the generic ballot, this is really striking, Latino voters back the Democratic candidate over the Republican candidate, 54-27, with 19% undecided. What do you make of that?